is about that time to start planning for your 2026 Euro summer. So if you are looking to go to Greece for a week and are trying to get a sense of how much things would cost when you get there, then this video is for you. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Bree, and I am currently taking you on a journey through all of my 2025 international travels and just sharing advice, tips, guidance around things that I experienced, recommendations I have, and just helping you feel a bit more prepared if you're interested in any of the countries that I went to last year. So today we're going to get into the 1 week trip that I got to experience in Greece. Sorry, really quick. We need a little commotion for the flowers. They are absolutely stunning. I saw it in the corner and I was like, oh wait, the girls need to see the entirety. Costco's 2 dozen roses for $18.99. Truly cannot go wrong. So, and they smell amazing. Anywho, back to the program. So we did Greece for like 24 hours. We literally got there on the 26th and then left out on the 27th of July. Then we did Paros from the 27th through the 30th, and then we did Mykonos from the 30th through the 1st of August. I want to give that context because it'll give a bit of color into just like how much we spent for each of these places. Of course, Mykonos we spent the most. It was crazy going from like Athens and Paros and then looking at the menus in Mykonos and like how much, it was just insane. But nonetheless, let's get into this breakdown. So when I am planning group trips, so for this one, for example, this was a girls trip, 4 girls, 1 week in Greece, and I was on point for essentially all the payments and making sure that we were on track for those, as well as booking all of the accommodations and all that. So I use an app called Notion to do all of my planning. And typically, like once I get things in a good place, I'll then share it with the people who are on that trip. So I'll just show you like high level really quick. It's a whole system, but this is kind of, let me see if I can scroll up. Yeah, so it's very cutesy. This is like my landing page, and I had just a breakdown of like, okay, what days are we going to be where? And then as you can see here, I had each of the different cities and how long we were going to stay there. Hopefully the Zoom is working, but if not, oh well. I might share this if needed. And then I had the breakdown of who was attending, the budget, of course, and then the sections for the flights, the ferries, packing list, accommodations, and excursions. So in this video, I specifically want to talk about budget. And if you are maybe hosting a group trip for the first time, or, planning it, one of the biggest, like honestly, the biggest rule, numero uno, is if you are planning a trip and you are on point for like PMing everything, be very clear with the group when it comes to how much things will cost, estimate of course, and when things are due. I learned the hard way in my 20s that unfortunately, yes, there are life circumstances where people have to bow out of a trip, but oftentimes it's just no longer convenient for people. And I have grown to understand that that is unfortunately not the responsibility of everyone else who is still committed and who did operate out of integrity. I'm not talking about, life circumstances where it's like I have to drop everything and be there for someone. I'm talking about, I don't think I want to go anymore. Can I have my money back? That's a no-go, and I am grateful that all of my friends are on board with this. So if you commit to a trip and you say you're going to go and you put your deposit down, after a certain date, that deposit is not refundable. Typically what I'll do is I will have half of the accommodation and excursions, like whatever we have decided, like everyone will be doing these things. Half of that is due. It depends on like the trip. So if it's like a domestic trip, it'll be way sooner. But like for an international trip like this, I had February is when I put together like the high level itinerary. And then by April, whatever was due, I had, so April 15th was when a big chunk of this was due. And then 30 days prior, which is when the Airbnbs actually took the remainder of the money, that's when the rest was due. So if someone were to back out between April and July, like early July, late June, they just weren't getting their money back. And it's fair because, again, like if a villa costs $1,000 and you're splitting it across 4 people, okay, cool, that's $250 a person. But if someone backs out because they just don't want to go anymore, that now increases it to what, 300 and change per person. And that's just it's not cute. So that is my biggest thing, is like, make sure that you have a date that you're collecting money, and make sure that you're very clear, like, once we pass this date, unless it's like extenuating circumstances, that's too bad. Okay, now let's get into, we didn't have that issue at all on this trip, thankfully. And I know that now, like when we plan trips and I'm like, hey y'all, I need to put deposit down by this date. If you are still iffy, then let's just count you as a no-go. And if you can come, then cool, we'll update everyone else's individual cost. And that's been pretty fair. So let's go over by city. So for Athens, we only spent 24 hours there again. So that we ended up getting a 2-bed, 2-bath villa in Athens. Like it was maybe like a 5-10 minute walk to all of the main attractions. I'm really terrible at learning all these. And maybe it was the Acropolis. I don't know, child, but it was right in the heart of Athens. It was $68 a person. And I guess $270 total. Maybe it'll be helpful for me to share totals as well. Now, after Athens, we went to Paros. The Paros villa was definitely one of my favorites. It was essentially a 2-bed, 2-bath villa. And then they were detached. So we had like a common courtyard space, but like each bedroom had its own door to get into from outside, if that makes sense. That one was stunning. I felt like we were truly living in a European or a Grecian like cave home kind of. So that one came up to $1,560 total, which was $390 a person. And then in Mykonos, we ended up staying in a hotel that was also 2-bed. It was like a boutique hotel. So it was 2-bed, 2-bath. And that one came up to $1,470. And that was $368 per person. So that covers all of the accommodations, which was, if I'm doing my quick math, that was about what, 400, 800, about $900 total per person. And then for ferries, so once we got to Athens, we took a ferry from Athens to Paros, and then we took a ferry from Paros to Mykonos. Ferries came up to $624 total, which was $156 a person, which honestly isn't bad. So it's technically, and then we flew out of Mykonos once we got to the end of the trip. So that was transportation once we were there. When it came to the taxis and the Ubers out there, that came up to $120 a person. So again, not bad. And then what else am I missing? And then excursions, right? So for Paros, we did an excursion called Captain Ben's Boat Day. This is where they took us to Antiparos. It was a full day of just like being out on the ocean. It was amazing. They provided food, drinks, plenty of beautiful stops, both to snorkel and swim, but also to get on the beach and just like hang out. It was stunning. That was $115 per person. And then lastly, we did a day party in Mykonos. Now, what we saw online on Instagram, I'll be honest, it did not translate. I don't know if we just went on an off weekend. I don't know if the management changed. I don't know what happened, but when we got there, they were playing that YMCA, and we're like, in Greece? So unfortunately, that was not our best move, but we still made the most out of it. They had provided food. They basically had like a minimum that you had to spend on like food and drink, and that was the cost of the ticket. So that was $173 per person. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Now, the last thing is food. So food, I didn't calculate for everyone because we, had our own vibes, but mine came up to $251 a person. Okay, so if we add all of this up, that comes up to $1,670 per person, which honestly is not bad. I definitely expected for us to spend at least $2,000 each, but mind you, this does not account for the flights in and out of Greece. This is just once we were there, how much the accommodations and excursions and food and drinks cost. So the girls are not lying. Once you get there, it really is not bad. It's just the flight itself. And then I think what was interesting, originally we were going to have, I think it was 6 people. There were not many 3-bed, 3-bath villas or Airbnbs, and it almost made more sense just to get like 2 separate ones at the time. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the group size. Like I think here in the US, we're so used to these massive, like huge houses, but Europe as a concept is much more like small and quaint. And so I think that's something that I definitely overlooked, because last time when I went to Europe, it was just myself and my sister. But this time around, like taking into consideration the size of the group would have been great. I will link all of the Airbnbs, like everything I mentioned here, Airbnbs, hotels, excursions, in the video description, just in case you want those. And also, if you do want like the template that I use for building out all of my group trips when I'm planning, let me know. Happy to also drop the link to that in the chat as well. But otherwise, yeah, Greece is a vibe. Again, we spent all of this $1,670 in a week, and we will have these memories for a lifetime. So that is all for today's video, and I will see you tomorrow.